Everybody, we're ready for another lively debate with my man Victor Vargas, and he's going to be debating Salty Mike, also known as Philosophish, who's got his own YouTube channel, but not a lot of content just yet. But these two guys are going to be doing a live debate. Um, there is no scientific evidence for the origin of human life. Of course, Victor's going to be taking the affirmative on that statement. And then Philosophish will be saying, no, that's not true. So Victor's going to be representing the Lord Jesus here. And Salty Mike's going to be representing Almighty Science. Praise science, praise science. And so we're going to do it like that. So what we're going to do is we're going to have a 10-minute opening from each one. If they want to take advantage of 10 minutes, that's fine. So we'll do a 10-minute long opening. Then we'll do a cross-examination that'll entail about 10 questions from each one. Then we'll go into an open discussion and then a closing. And then hopefully we'll have an after party. So we're trying to get an after party and have some interesting people come through on that will maybe feature. So we'll see how that goes. Until then, man, I'm just going to shut my stupid pie hole and I'm going to let Victor go ahead and start the opening statement. So you go right ahead, brother.
All right. Well, I'm honored, Mike, and thanks again for accepting this debate. Here's my curiosity, okay? When I said there is no scientific evidence for the origin of human life, what I mean is this. According to my research and debates that I've watched for the last couple of weeks, it is clearly stated that there is no scientific evidence for the origin of human life. What do I mean by this? That we cannot go back in time and see how life evolved in reality. So the mother of all questions are the following. Ever since the discovery of DNA, the claim that life could have evolved from non-life is improbable. What is DNA? Is the molecule that carries genetic information for the development and functioning of an organism. DNA is made of two linked strands that wind around each other to resemble a twisted ladder, a shape known as a double helix. Each strand has a backbone made of alternative sugar. I'm not going to try to pronounce that. It looks like deoxyriboase and phosphate groups. Attached to the E sugar is one of the four bases, adenine, cytosine, guanine, and thymine. Sorry for the mistranslation. I don't know how to say those. This is beyond me. But the two strands are connected by chemical bonds between the bases. Adenine bonds with thymine and cytosine bonds with guanine. The sequence of the base along the DNA's backbone encodes a biological information, such as the instructions for making a protein or ANA molecule. Here's my question. What is the scientific evidence that DNA, with the capacity to hold huge amounts of biological encoded information, evolved from non-life? There are supposedly millions and millions of bits of encoded information. This information has to form perfectly. If one fails, there is no life or cell. Professor Francis Crick, awarded the Nobel Prize for the discovery of DNA, wrote, an honest man armed with all the knowledge available to us now could only state that in some sense, the origin of life appears at the moment to be almost a miracle. So many are the conditions which would have had to have been satisfied to get it going. From the book Life Itself, New York, Simon and Chester, 1981, page 88. What is a cell? In biology, the smallest unit that can live on its own and make up all the living organisms in the tissues of the body, a cell has three main parts: the cell membrane, the nucleus, and the cytoplasm. The cell membrane surrounds the cell and controls the substance that go in and out of the cell. The nucleus is a structure inside the cell that contains the nucleus and most of the cell's DNA. It is also where the RNA is made. The cytoplasm is the fluid inside the cell, contains other tiny cell parts that have specific functions, including the Golgi complex, the mitochondria, and the endoplasmic reticulum. The cytoplasm is where most chemical reaction takes place and where most proteins are made. The human body has more than 30 trillion cells. A cell is surrounded by a membrane which has receptors on the surface. A cell has several small structures inside. It includes the nucleus, mitochondria, endoplasmic reticulum, and the Golgi complex. These all have specific functions in the cell. Here are my questions. We could almost say that the cell is a warehouse or a factory. I read an article in the internet by Popular Mechanics, published by Monique Brulette. It's a freelance contributor who writes about biology. This is what she wrote. Scientists have continually tried to pinpoint the exact origins of life on Earth. One of the leading theories is that life emerged from chemical processes in the Earth's early ocean. Simple chemicals precursors such as water, carbon, and hydrogen mixed and mingled until they found complex polymers like DNA, RNA, and protein, the building blocks of life. But scientists are still waiting for proof that chemical ingredients can spontaneously assemble themselves, become wrapped in a membrane, and divide. In other words, they are still a missing link between the chemistry of early life and the subsequent biology. Jaap Bokum tells Popular Mechanics, a synthetic chemist at the Technical University of Munich, says, living cells do not need energy inputs in order to divide, but rather fuel their own reproduction with chemical reactions that happen in the cell. He thinks in order to show that life can form from chemicals, it would need to happen without human intervention. What will really be amazing is if you could throw the ingredients in a test tube, leave it, and then see the droplets replicating, he says. If that happens, you could wake me up in the middle of the night. So here is my question. We have the theist groups and some unfriendly sources saying, how can this happen without human intervention? That's all I'm saying. I mean, everybody's seeing how complex the cell is. I was just talking about the cell, the DNA. There's millions and millions, and it keeps saying about information and look at all the things that are going on inside the cell, and we have 30 trillion. Now, if you tell me that came by chance and random, like unguided, if that is reason, give me faith. Go ahead, take it from there, Mike.
Okay. So to start off, and just so we're clear, I'm not a biologist. I don't play one on TV. I do find evolution to be an interesting topic, so I have a kind of surface level understanding of it. I don't go deep into it. I actually think if you get into the nitty gritty, it starts to get a little boring. But I do think I understand it well enough to accept it and understand why it works. Topic here is about the origins of human life. So the origins of human life, clearly humans evolved. We are apes. We have all the features that describe an ape describe us. We can go through the fossil record. We can find our ancestors. You can go to any natural history museum. You can see how we come to become the modern form we are today. And any talk about abiogenesis, which is how life began, is not actually relevant to this discussion, because how life began and how life evolved are two different questions. Life exists, so clearly it began somehow. However that happened, we don't have to know. We don't know. We don't need to know to study how it changes and diversifies over time. So I think that was short and sweet. I'm going to go with that for my opening, but I do kind of need to know what I was trying to follow along. I'm not sure what the questions all were. If you can ask them again.
Yeah, maybe we can go right into the open questions or the cross-examination questions, and you can reiterate. Yeah.
Okay. Here's my question. Give me one moment. Do you agree that semiotic information, for example, if you find a note on your desk that says the following, "Hi, Mike, love you, is your mom," that such note can only be put together and written by a creative mind behind it? Yes or no?
Yes.
Do you agree that if you see a warehouse, you would never in billions of years imagine that such factory could have evolved without a mind behind it?
Yes.
Okay. In the anatomy of the brain, could you point where the mind and the consciousness are physically located?
No.
If a person had a dream, could we open his head and look into his brain and find the information of the dream without with the person telling us?
I mean, I don't know.
Okay. Is all existing in reality nothing else but physical material?
I'm sorry, what was that?
Is all existence in reality nothing else but physical material?
I don't know.
Do ethical moral laws evolve inside the brain?
Do what?
Do ethical moral laws evolve inside the brain?
No, I don't. I don't think so necessarily. But
Okay.
it's a tricky one because there's different ways to look at it. So
Okay. Do you
kind
agree
of,
that do you agree that babies are born innocent and have no knowledge of any moral laws?
yeah,
Are animals creative moral beings?
creative moral beings.
Yes, sir.
I don't think they're capable of reflecting on their morality. So no.
Okay. Is it rational for me to believe that just because I know how the engine works, therefore there is no engineer?
No.
If Jesus existed, claimed to be God, and proved it by rising from the dead, am I rational to believe that he is the creator of human lives and he claims it to be?
There'd be a lot more there. I don't think so though.
Okay. Go ahead.
Um, I'd like to go over some of these questions actually a little more closely, but I've lost track. I was just answering your yes and no to begin with.
Yeah, yeah. Last time the timing. Yeah, so I
I feel like
wanted to
maybe we
be
should just
nice
gone
and
into it.
precise.
I feel like maybe we should just gone into it as you asked and how we wanted to, because I don't really have any questions for you. I don't feel like I mean, like you asked about the warehouse. Is it rational to believe the warehouse evolved? But we know how where warehouses come from. We know how they are built. So it puts it in a different category from things we don't know. So you can't really use that as an example to say the mind must have a intelligence behind it because we don't know how the mind came about.
Hey, so let me ask you, since you made a differences, and I know this was going to happen. Okay, remember the argument is that many don't believe that we evolved from animals. Are you saying that we evolved from an animal, existing animal, and then we evolved into human beings?
Yeah, and we are
Okay,
animals.
we are what?
And we are animals.
So we are animals.
Yes.
Okay, so from which animals did we evolve from?
From
So the question is like, because I haven't read this yet, because I'm now more than nervous than ever because of the after party. Okay, so I'm really want to know, Mike. I'm honest with you. I really want to know, so I don't make a fool out of myself. So here's my question. So you're telling me a cell, from that cell, all of a sudden it evolved to an animal. Which animal would that be?
I wouldn't say all of a sudden, and I don't know what the
Well,
first animal would be,
okay.
but there's a
So
there's a whole variety. In fact, I think if I'm not mistaken, mushrooms evolved before animals, and then animals kind of came out of there somehow. I don't really know the full genealogy of which way it worked, but so it's more of like we're more closely related to fungus than we are to like plants. If I'm correct, but
okay.
I feel like that's
So which animal did we evolve from? Since
other
we're animals,
previous apes from before us.
So we're advanced apes,
Well, we're just apes.
just
I
apes.
don't know if saying advanced apes really works. I mean, it's not like
Well,
gorillas and orangutans and other species of great apes are really more advanced or less advanced. They're just differently evolved than we are.
okay. See, here's where I have a problem with this. And I can understand where you said the difference between abiogenesis and evolving from animals and how life. Okay, here's the problem that I have. That's why I ask you these questions, and these are not tricky questions to trick you, but My questions usually is how you view reality, and then I see your claim, and then I see if your claim comports with reality. And my one of the questions is this: I ask you about morality. You agree that animals are not
They're not capable of reflecting on their morality. But
exactly
there is, but that's even that gets gray because like there's. Have you seen the monkey cucumber experiment? They have two monkeys in a cage, and the researcher gives one a cucumber. You know, after the monkey does a little task, gets a cucumber. The monkey next cage sees that happen. The monkey in the first cage does another task, gets another cucumber, and so then the researcher has the monkey in the second cage do a task, and he gets a grape. Now grapes are fucking awesome. I mean, a cucumber is great, nice, but a grape is fucking awesome. So then the researcher goes back to give the other monkey a task. He does the task, and he gets a cucumber. And that monkey gets mad, throws the cucumber. So he goes back to the other monkey that just got the grape, has him do a task. That monkey does a task, gets another grape. Now that monkey sees how unfairly he's being treated, even though he's benefiting, and throws the grape back at the researcher. So it just kind of shows that there is at least some altruistic, empathetic behaviors throughout the animal kingdom, not just in humans, which is kind of where I think morality comes from, in which case you could say it's more of an evolved trait than not.
okay.
Here's something I need to interject real quick. That might help things along too. We need to kind of define. Maybe it'd be a good time to maybe define what our terms like. What constitutes evidence? What is evolution as we understand it?
Right, yeah.
Different things like that. What is
Right.
a theory? What is a theory versus a fact? Or how do we understand theory versus a fact?
Okay, that'd be helpful from you, Mike. But here's my question. Okay, this is what I don't understand. I understand you're showing that an animal can be smart. You can teach animal things, and I don't disagree. Especially monkeys, they're very smart. Even dogs.
But that's not
But
a case
here's
of
about we're talking about morality.
yeah, and that's not the monkey cucumber experiment is not a case of them just being smart. It's a case of them having a sense of fairness.
Yeah, but that is not a moral question. A
It's
morality is
a
about
sense of
the
fairness is not a moral question.
well. Look what he's doing. I mean, I can understand he understands something is being unfair, but a moral question is this: does he know what is wrong here? Because that looks like it's being convenienced.
I
Like
think
in a chess game, is a bad move, but it's not really a moral bad move. A move could be bad, but when you're talking about morality, there's nothing wrong with making a bad move. So my question to you is now imagine that's
something
why I
wrong.
ask you this question. Look, are babies born with a sense of morality? And you said no. I mean, I ask you this question. Look, do you agree that babies are born innocent and have no knowledge of any moral laws? And you said yes. So now imagine, right? We evolving. Here's my question to you. We evolving. When did we actually became creative moral beings?
I don't know.
That's my question too. And so far today, Mikey, today we don't see animal teaching us moral values. I can see an example we can learn from animals being compassionate. Some animals show great compassion. I mean, look at the hippopotamus sometimes saves the deer, but then we find out that when he gets irritated, I saw a video him trying to save the deer from the pack of wild dogs. And then when the deer wasn't moving fast enough, you know what he did? He grabbed the deer and killed it himself and moved on. So what he did was, at first I was like, wow, look at that. He's saving a
That
deer.
kind of does just misses the point here, though, because I mean, like with the monkey experiment, one of them sees something. Or they both actually see something's wrong. You can see it in both of them, because there's the one who's getting the cucumber and the one who's getting the grape, and even the one who's getting the grape is saying, "Hey, that guy deserves a grape. Give him a grape," and they're getting mad at the researcher.
Yeah, but that's a speculation. We
Well,
don't know if
we
he
don't
really
have it.
said.
Okay, well, we don't have any way of looking at what's the actual thought process is. We can only we can only view and see what it looks like, and that's certainly what it looks like. They both very much
Right,
appear to
and
show a
that's
sense of
exactly
fairness.
right. And I don't disagree with that. But what I'm saying, look, we're creative moral beings, and
Are you saying created or creative?
creative moral beings. Like, for example,
Because
let's say you and I are neighbors.
yeah,
Okay. Uh, let's say I'm about to eat. Okay, and I'm very hungry. Okay, and then I see your child is hungry. No matter how hungry I am, me as an adult, as a man, I can take it. I can say, you know what, man, Mikey hasn't come back from work. His child is very hungry. I'm gonna give him my food, and hopefully, when Mikey comes back, we can go and get a some McDonald's or something.
that's because you're an empathetic, altruistic human being, just like
Right
a lot of
now,
animals are.
now watch this though. I've seen lions, wild dogs, and monkeys, and when they're hungry, they're not sharing.
And humans
They
have
don't
done
have
that
that.
too. So,
Huh?
and humans have done that also. There's humans that
Right.
are pretty horrible. They'll go out there and they'll kill people, shoot,
That's right.
steal,
Look
whatever.
what look. Yeah, but we don't call animals immoral. But if you do it, if a person does it, we call it immoral.
Yeah, but that's not really the point that I was driving at. Just saying, you can see the empathetic, altruistic tendencies do appear. So that's why I'm not entirely convinced it's something that originates outside of us, as a lot of like moral realists try to say. In fact, I kind of think that idea is a little bit incoherent.
Okay. So go ahead and define the terms. What do you mean by evolve? What Scotty was saying, so we can evolve
Yeah,
the terms
evolution.
evolution.
How do you understand evolution? I'll ask both of you guys.
Uh, I mean, the technical definition is just the change of allele frequencies over time.
Hmm.
I like to just kind of think of it as over generations, you have changes, and
Okay.
that.
So
Yeah.
can you give me an analogy so I can understand it better?
Think about language. I think language is the best analog. French, Spanish, Italian all came from Latin. Never did a Latin speaking mother give birth to a Spanish speaking child. The languages, as people moved out and they got isolated into their respective locations, just kind of changed over time. New words would be added, old words would be, you get like basically what we call, why am I blanking on it?
Could
But
be like slang or
yeah, slang, that's the word I'm thinking of. Slang words get adapted, they eventually become proper parts of the language. And over enough generations in isolation from each other, the language become completely, almost entirely distinct from each other. So,
but then the language that it came from is still functioning the same way without the slang in their respective areas. So, is that
actually,
kind of analogous to like why is there still monkey, or why is, like, you hear that saying, why is there still monkeys if we came from monkeys? Why is there
actually,
still
actually, the origin
apes?
languages don't always stay the same. In fact, Latin isn't
Right.
used anymore. Latin's totally
Hmm.
gone, and it would be the
Is
same thing
there
with our ancestors. They don't exist anymore.
can you use can you make an analogy with the physical body?
With the physical body,
Yeah, like for example, do you?
if I
I
use
heard
that
I
wouldn't be an
read this
analogy. That
somewhere.
would just be an example.
Mikey, I read this somewhere. I don't know if it's true or not, but I gotta remember it. Do you believe that? I believe, was it the rhino or the elephant? Please don't quote me. But what happens is the thing was that I they were saying that rhinos, or was it hippopotamus? Don't quote me on it. That evolved from whales or sea creatures. Do you believe that could happen?
Um, I don't think that's correct, but whales and dolphins and all the sea mammals did evolve from land creatures.
Now,
Oh, okay.
how do you understand evolution,
Uh,
Victor?
Well, I'm gonna go what I was reading so far about natural selection and what I've been seeing. I don't know if you guys remember State It Clearly. There's okay, when I started debates, okay, and I didn't know what evolution was. I was just going with the flow that the argument with the Christians versus atheists, and atheists using evolution, okay. And I remember I was really interested in, so atheists started giving me information, and the best ones they gave me was State It Clearly. You guys seen those YouTube channel? State It Clearly,
Hmm.
okay.
I haven't seen that.
And there's another philosopher. There's another philosopher. I wish I could remember. Um, he was explaining natural selection. This is what I understood. For example, he was explaining that the moth, if it's in an environment,
Peppered moth.
uh, what is it called?
The peppered moth
Yes.
from
Did
the
you see
early
that?
from the industrial. Yeah, that's a good one.
Okay. So
It's
what I
adaptation.
understood from the pepper moth, all right. At first, he had a white color,
Mhm.
and then in the environment that he was in, eventually, because of all the chemicals around and the darkness, we have a white pepper moth, and now we have a
Yeah.
dark moth. I can understand that because you know what? I'm from Honduras.
Mhm.
Right now, I look white. When I went to my country and came back, I was dark.
Yeah, but that's not evolution. That's
That's
just
not evolution.
no.
No.
That's just evolution has to go from one generation to another.
Oh, okay.
And
So
also, do you know what speciation is?
no speciation. No, I was just about to start reading that, but you know,
Okay, so speciation is kind of like when one species um, gradually becomes another classification of species. So, like an ape, like a gorilla is one species, and humans are another species of ape.
Yeah.
So, like, you couldn't mate with a gorilla and have a baby.
why not?
It's not
Well,
chemically
because
compatible.
yeah, no, the compatibility we're so far apart. That's what species. That's how we
I mean,
divide it. We
and you
call it
st-
different. Yeah.
and you still
What
have
about
more
with the apes? Like you were saying, Mike, if we evolved from apes or monkeys, whichever one, why couldn't we mate with them?
because we're too far apart. It's like you can't have a duck and a chicken mate. They're both
Right.
birds, right?
Yeah, I understand that.
Yeah, well, an ape and a gorilla and a human are both apes. They can't
Hmm.
mate.
Just like a
And it
duck
gets
and
a
a
little tricky
yeah.
too, because then you still have like a donkey and a horse, which can mate, even though they're different species. So you still have exceptions. It gets a little fuzzy around the edges. And
Okay. But do you see how okay, now here's the questions. You see, we don't know how these moral values evolve. We
yeah,
don't know.
I think we can.
So I, I mean, information is passed on from mind to mind in creative minds. Now, that's my question. I mean, for example, I'm not arguing for God right now, but we do recognize objective moral laws. Like I was like, remember the last time we were debating, Scotty? I asked you, you know, if you would defend a determinist murderer, and you said no. I mean, I believe that moment. I think Scotty made an objective moral decision that no matter what that person does, he saw that no, that person is guilty, which
Yeah,
means that law is
but
independent of human opinion.
what does it
So,
mean to make something be wrong? You know, to just
well,
suggest it's wrong because there's some ether out there that says it's wrong is pretty arbitrary. I think we have some more digging on that, which is like if you take a more of a secular humanist stance, it's about the well-being of human beings. You determine what's right and wrong based on what is good or bad for human well-being. That's a very simplistic
right,
explanation,
but we still recognize objective moral values.
but it's only objectively true that X, like murdering someone, is not good for our our humanity. So,
All right, so you recognize objective that object. Okay, so
but it's not like some
What do you mean by objective? What do you mean objective,
okay,
Victor?
objective means independent of human opinion. Like what you just said, Mike. It's not good to murder an innocent person.
right. But well, I mean that's kind of by definition. It's not good to. we don't want to. It would not be good for our well-being to kill someone for, the fun of it. You can't just, if you did that, that would be bad for our well-being. And if we're talking about our well-being being like the measuring stick for what is moral, then yeah, that's not.
So maybe what he's saying, Victor, is goals are the subjective part. Like we want well-being. Like that's a subjective goal. Because some people don't want well-being. Some people want to commit suicide. So it just depends on the person you talk to. So well-being is the goal, which is subjective, and then you can kind of say, well, what's the best way to achieve well-being? Well, let's make murder bad. So that is an objective part of it, where you can say, well, we can all agree if we murder each other, then well-being goes out the window. That's just an objective fact.
Well,
So the goal is kind of subjective, whereas the moral is, or the best way to reach the goal can be objective.
And that's what I mean. That's okay. That's
Right.
exactly.
But
So let's say all
that's
three of us.
different,
it
though.
works if we
I think,
subjectively agree on the basically the measuring stick. Like if
Okay.
you say it's bad because God said so, well, that says nothing for me because I don't care if God said so. It's got nothing to do
because
with
his
what.
goal might be
Right.
different. Right.
Okay, watch this. Whether God said it or not, is still independent of human opinion that it is wrong to murder an innocent person.
Only if we accept the goal.
Okay,
Mhm.
Well-being
that's a
is
good
what we're
point.
concerned about.
Sam Harris made his argument against William and Craig. He said, I do agree in objective moral value, but he couldn't give a moral foundation. What is the moral foundation then? You try
Well-being.
that. Huh?
Well-being.
Well-being? Yeah, but well-being is subjective.
No, our agreement on using it as our foundation is subjective. But there's
But
no way
look, right
around
now
that. You can't get around
right
that
now
on
you're
being
trying to
supposed
look for a moral point of reference. Okay, what you call well-being, I may not see it that way.
Right. So I
And
think
that's why
Philosophish is not arguing for that objective moral grounding. He's saying that it's grounded in a goal which is subjective. So he's grounding morality in subjectivity, and I think you're trying to ground morality in objectivity somehow.
okay,
So in objectivity is defined, just to make sure we're all clear.
right,
Objective means outside of one's opinion or mind.
right,
So if you have a mind or if you're a person, the objectivity is outside of your opinion, outside of your thinking. It's
exactly.
grounded in something
I mean,
outside of that.
Okay, and the best analogy I could give, let's say we're in a group right now, right? And we said, okay, if anybody else comes into the group, we all agree that he's got to ask permission to debate next time. That just became our objective law. If that, whether that person likes it or not, that's objective. Where did that objective rule came? From all three. So that's what I'm saying.
Yeah,
Where
but
you
here's the part you're missing about Philosophish. He's accepting your definition of objective. You're saying that objectivity comes outside of a mind. So if God has a mind, then the goal that God has for for morality is subject to God,
but that's
because
not
God
even,
is a person.
that's not even really it. Because even if God wants us to behave and act some certain way, sure, whichever way he wants us to say and act, it would be objective of us, but I don't care. Because
Well, because it's an objective fact. Like say, um, this phone is square, and if I drop, here's an objective fact: if I let go of this phone, it will drop.
right,
That's not my opinion. That's what's going to happen.
exactly.
And so nobody determined that. No one outside of me said, "Hey, if you let go of the phone, it should drop." So morality, in the same way, can function, I guess, in the same
But
way.
this is where I'm
Yeah.
saying nobody's out of this boat. Theistic moral systems or atheistic ones or secular ones or whatever you want to call them. We have to we have to subjectively agree on the goal. If your goal is I want to do what God says to do, okay, great. but I don't
No,
agree.
no, no, no. I understand that, but
I
here's
don't
my
think
question.
murder is wrong because God said so. I think murder is wrong because it's bad for our well-being
Well, how do you know that? Because look
because of
what's
how
going on. How
well-being is
did you?
defined.
Okay, no, no, no. See, but that's a good thing. What is the origin of that information? Because, like you agree here, look,
I think the
you said
reason
here, I ask you this question. Look, I ask you this question is, do you agree that babies are born innocent and have no knowledge of any moral laws? You said yes, which means that we as a baby we learn those moral ethics, which is great, and I can tell you're a nice guy.
but I
So
still think
somebody taught you. So my question is this, right? So let us imagine 10,000 years from now, 50,000 years from now, there was a part when we were evolving from animals. At what point do we learn all these moral values? Because it's not information that it, like you said over here too, that this information didn't involve in the brain.
we're just empathetic, altruistic creatures, and throughout time, that empathy and that altruism is what kind of developed our senses of morality, along with our upbringings, along with
No, no, no. I
our
understand that's
cultural
what you think
experience.
we are. Yeah, but that's what we are. But what I'm saying is information is learned. Information is passed from mind to mind. And you already
Information
stated,
is also discovered. It's not strictly past.
what do you mean information? But if you don't know what information is, how could you know what you're discovering?
Well, you can. There's two ways for information to transfer. Like
Right.
one is through books and transferring, teaching your younger kids, whatever. The
Exactly.
other is going out in the world and discovering how to make things and
Good. Okay. So that's exactly
discovering
my
how
point.
fire works. So yeah,
Exactly. So at what point, when we were evolving from animal, what animals or how did we came with that information? How do we came with that about with that information?
I mean, even the other primates seem to have empathetic and altruistic behavior. So I kind of think we already had it before we were even human.
No, that's not what I'm asking about our behavior. You're looking at a function. I'm looking at the information. So, for example,
What do
I'm
you mean by
you
information?
information like semiotic information. Like for example, like I asked you over here, I said, do you agree that semiotic information? For example, if you find a note on your desk that says the following, "Hi, Mike, I
Did you
love
ask when
you."
we learned to start writing? I don't know what you're asking.
Okay, well, semiotic information is only understood when somebody else teaches you. We're not born with moral ethics.
But
We're
we also had to invent it and then pass it along. So it's not just
That's right. So
if you're
that's
just
my
talking about
question.
writing, then yeah, we invented writing, which is part of what helped our
Okay,
species
we
advance because we
invented
were able.
writing.
Yes, it gave us the ability to transfer information across generations. Something that
That's begging the question.
no, it's not. It's exactly what happened.
Well, that's what I'm asking. Where, when, and where, and from
When and where?
who?
When and where? What? First, our
You just
ancestors.
said. I'm sorry to interrupt you. You just said we invented writing in what else did you say that we learn and we invented? But in order to learn something, you got it. For example, I am in a hard time teaching my kids right now how to read and write.
Okay.
But that's me passing on information. So what you're saying is that eventually we learn how.
Eventually, we learn how. I don't know
Yeah.
what you're asking.
Okay. How did we ever came about the information of moral ethics? How did we ever came about the information about semiotic information means symbols that carry meaning?
Yeah, we started cave painting, and it started out simple and got more advanced, and eventually, and we would kind of use these little depictions to kind of help pass information along. So that, and eventually, whole alphabets started to spring up.
Okay. So to make it easier, let us assume we leave a 5-year-old in the middle of the jungle.
Yeah.
Do you think he will ever learn how to read and write without
No,
anybody? Okay. Do you ever think that
but
an
we're not
animal
talking
could?
about an individual. We're talking about a whole society that formed. We're talking about lots of people doing this
Okay.
over
Oh, okay.
generations.
So let me ask you this: we leave 20 babies, 25-year-olds that don't know how to read and write, would they eventually learn how to read and write, 20 of
They'll
them?
probably end up dead.
Exactly my point. That's why,
Well,
see,
yeah, so let's
okay,
not leave 20 babies alone on an island. I mean, it's just not a good idea.
exactly. So
But
this is why now I'm going, Scotty, you see where I'm going with this? Now I want to, now I want to look a little stupid. Okay. And here's where I believe in Jesus Christ. This is why I'm a Christian. Because the Bible says he created men and women, a fully formed man, a fully adult. And the information that I'm trying to get from you and the moral ethics comes from God, from another mind. Call it Jesus, because I know many
Adam
people
and
get
Eve
offended
were
by the
no
word
different.
God. See, it makes more sense to me that somebody else outside of us came and gave us that information. Hey, look, this is going to
So
be
you
your
think our
name.
ancestors were too stupid to make stuff themselves?
No, 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 no. We're agreeing that if you leave 25-year-olds in the middle of the jungle with no guidance, you just said they will end up dead.
Yeah.
Okay,
Because
another thing.
5-year-olds aren't as well developed as adults.
Okay, so let's say you leave 20 adults that don't know how to read and write and don't know how to survive. They got to go and learn. Would they survive in the jungle?
Some of them might. I don't know.
Exactly my point. So it's got to be the guidance
We're
and
not talking.
information.
Writing didn't spring up in a single generation or over a single. It sprang up over like thousands of years.
Regardless, sir, somebody have to teach me how to.
It didn't
Somebody have
start
to
all
teach
at
me how to read
once.
and write.
And there, the origins of
So
you don't
basically,
just
what I'm asking you, Mr. Mike, basically what I'm asking you, sir, and I don't want to aggravate you with the same thing. What is the origin of information, such as moral ethics? How did all this came about?
Well, I've already answered where I think morality came from, or I shouldn't say. I mean, morality is going to kind of depend on your own philosophy of morality, but I do think it is mostly a product of our altruistic and empathetic nature that developed it.
Yeah, well, I would classify that as human behavior and animal behaviors. But
Yeah.
as far as an animal telling me, hey, you know what, murder is wrong, I would never assume that it comes from an animal. Second, the best way I could say that Salty Mike is the one who taught me my moral ethics. That I, as a father, teach my children moral ethics. Another moral creative mind teaches another person as they rising, as they growing up, teaches them moral.
Okay,
So
so
that's why
let
I have
let
a
me let me
problem.
let me time out here.
Oh,
So
go ahead,
just
go ahead.
just just to kind of get a clarity on where we're at. Okay, so basically, Victor, what you're saying is that we understand that information or moral information or what's right and wrong is passed down orally or through writing or some other way. That's the only way we know that morality is kind of passed down. So eventually, if we were to go back in time, let's say your mother and father were taught morality from their mother and father and all the way back to the very first humans, the only way those humans could have gotten morality is if somebody told them. So God is where you're saying that he told them or wrote it down or something and told the first humans. That's how they were able to pass it down to their kids and on and on and on and on and on. So my question is, we're talking about evidence. So is there scientific evidence that that happened?
Okay, that's a good question. Scientific evidence, we end up with the same speculation. But we can rationally see today in reality that information comes from mind to mind, is passed on.
And
And
nothing's
so I
discovered.
can I can tell you that because of what I see today, that such moral ethics, such moral information, semiotic information is passed on from mind to mind. I have no problems believing that a God, a creative mind, passed on such information. So my question to him was, at what point in time, just like you're
Victor,
saying,
I got to stop you for a second
okay,
because I got to ask a question.
sure,
If
go ahead.
information is only transferred from mind to mind, how did these things ever get invented?
What do you mean?
How did we ever have cell phones? How did they ever come to exist? Because shouldn't or why did it take so long for them to exist? Why didn't Adam and Eve have one? If they information only comes from mind to
Good
mind,
question.
how did
Right.
we
Well,
discover or how did we manage
that
to
that's
put
a
technology
very good
together?
question, Salty Mike, because we are creative moral beings. And that's why I'm trying
What's
to
that got to
get
do
that.
with it?
So no, no, wait. That's a good question. So in the evolution or the way we're talking about right now, you're saying that we evolved from an animal.
Yeah.
So I could say, listen, my argument is that all this information, right? I can rationally speculate that since we became, see, look, in the beginning said God created the heavens and the earth, and He created men to be creative moral beings. We have the ability to create. That's not the question here. My question
But
is
if we
this:
have
how did we get it from another animal?
but if we
Because
have
in your worldview, we evolved from another animal, and if we evolved from another animal, that means that information that existed in another animal. Is that what you're telling me? So
no,
forget the fact that we're created.
no,
I
because
totally
I
agree.
don't follow your I don't agree with your point that information only comes from mind to mind to mind
So
because
okay, good.
information is
So how
also
do we get it?
discovered.
Perfect.
Information is also discovered. You can discover new things, and that's why we can invent new things. That's why technology advances. That's why we're on this call to begin with, because we've discovered how to link computers together and talk to each other over thousands
Right.
of
Right.
miles.
So,
It,
Victor, maybe what he's saying is that no one told anyone how to create these phones.
right.
Somebody had to figure it out. Somebody had to,
Right.
some original guy at some point had to figure out how to make communication over electricity, for example, and
Exactly.
sound waves. And so different people specialized in different things.
Right.
Then they all came together with their discoveries,
Right.
communicated it to each other verbally and in writing, like you were saying, and they were able to eventually, over a lot of time, over generations, come up with these phones. So here's what he's saying, I think, is that in the very beginning of that process, it was not language or minds that actually delivered that information, but it was just through the act of discovering. So if we were to take that analogy and apply it to morality, I think what Salty Mike is saying is that maybe as an example, I don't like it when, if I eat this fish here, I notice people die. This fish is poisonous, right? So I'm going to make a moral law, don't eat fish, shellfish or something, because I see that people die. So I'm going to communicate and write it down and pass it along to my kids and pass it along to other people. You shouldn't eat shellfish. But it didn't come from God or some other person saying
I
don't eat
totally agree.
shellfish.
Let's take the God picture out of here.
Right. So I guess
I
what he's
want
saying,
him
and
to
correct me
explain
if,
that thing. Right.
yeah,
That's what I want him to explain to me. I said from God. You don't, and I'm fine. Let's get God out of the picture. That's why I'm asking you questions so I can see your worldview. Because in my worldview, like he just explained it, we are creative beings. That's not my argument. My argument is that if there is no God and we evolve from animals, that means that eventually all this creative that we are, passed all this information that we have and all those moral ethics that we have, was it passed on from animals? If we evolved from animals, that means we got it from animals. Is that what you're saying?
Some things like
You see what I'm saying? I'm not trying to trick you or anything. That's really my
I'm having
honest,
trouble.
my honest question.
Having trouble
Pretend I'm like
understanding.
your 5 year old right now because that's exactly what he said. That we have the ability to create and creative in the Bible. I can tell it makes sense to
Are
me.
you suggesting that if we evolved, we wouldn't have the ability to be creative? I don't understand.
I don't know how.
Why would
I'm trying to
evolving
see if
into
you
humans somehow inhibit our ability to be creative?
say that again.
Why would it? Why would evolution, if we evolved from other animals, why would that inhibit our ability to be creative? Because it just seems like another
I
trait
don't know. I'm
that we
asking you.
evolved to
How can
have.
we? Okay. How do we learn? How do we have all this knowledge about writing information? Because look, this here is called semiotic information. Each symbol carries a meaning, which
Yeah.
means it was taught. Somebody created it.
And
I'm not
somebody at the
arguing that.
beginning invented
Uh,
it. And somebody at the beginning invented it. I don't.
okay, so that's my question. Was it an animal?
We probably didn't start writing till well after we were fully human.
Right. But that's what I'm saying. There is no evidence that animals can create such semiotic information.
But we do. I
Uh,
mean, does it matter? It's just there's no animal
well,
like.
it does because I could argue for
I
the
can't live at
existence
the
of.
bottom of the ocean, but there's animals that can live there.
Well, no, but that's not. But that's irrelevant. This is about semiotic information
But
that is
you're just
passed
picking
on
a
from mind to
specific
mind.
kind. You're just picking a specific kind of trait that we as humans have, and saying other animals don't have that trait. But other animals have other traits we don't have, like being able to live
And
at the
that's
bottom of the
fine.
ocean.
And right, but that's not my claim. I mean, I'm just saying where such information came from if we evolved from animals, and
I
that's fine.
don't
I mean,
understand what the hang up is, because I don't know why you don't think, or why you think having evolved means we can't be creative.
you know what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna find you. There was an article that they did a test on a whole bunch of monkey and typewriters. They did this, and they couldn't even produce a single A to be separated to make a word.
It doesn't matter. I don't know how that's relevant.
Is relevant because it means that animals cannot be creating semiotic information like we do.
Well, that's just a trait that we have. There's other animals that have traits we can't do. That's what I'm
Right.
saying. So I
Okay.
don't know. You're just kind of cherry picking this one particular trait humans have and saying, look, other animals can't do this. I don't care.
No. It's fine that you don't care, but you see my explanation. Like a baby is born, a child is born, and then that child is taught from another human being the moral ethics and semiotic information and how to write. So I've always wondered this. I'm not trying to trick you or anything or pin you. I'm just saying, man, if all this information is passed on from generations to generation, it means eventually in the evolution worldview that you believe in, I'm just calling it evolution. Eventually, we had to learn it from an animal or some other
Why
smart
eventually?
being.
Well, we can discover it on our own too. We don't need an
But how
animal
do
to
you
teach
discover
us.
something that you have no idea about?
How did we make cell phones if we had no idea about them? Like,
Right, because we were taught how to read and write and how to be creative with numbers. I mean, in 1953,
right, but
Francis Crick.
somebody
Okay,
had to invent that too if you go back far enough.
and that's my question. See in the Bible, as far as back I go, I end up with a creative mind. But in your worldview, I don't end up with a creative mind. I end up in an animal. That's why
I'm
I'm
having
just
trouble
curious.
understanding why you don't think we can be creative if we evolved. That's what's.
That's not my question.
It is what you're. I don't. Then what are
No. Okay, check this out. This is
you
why I
asking
wanted
again?
to ask
I
you
still
to
have
look.
no idea.
Okay, watch this. Or animals created beings? You said no. Do ethical moral laws evolve inside the brain? You said no. Then I said,
I actually said it was
uh,
tricky on that one because it kind of depends on morale or on what we are calling
right.
morality.
Then where's I ask you another one. Do you agree that babies are born innocent and with no knowledge of any moral laws? You said yes. So you see what I'm saying? At all three questions,
I
I was
don't believe
asking
moral
because I
laws
wanted.
really exist, so it doesn't really matter that I
Say,
also
say
think
that. Say
babies.
that again. I'm
I don't
sorry.
believe moral laws exist. So in that respect, I don't even think it matters that babies don't, because I don't believe they exist.
What doesn't exist?
Moral laws.
Well, okay, ethical laws is about knowing right and wrong.
But to just suggest there's some sort of prescriptive law about what's right and wrong,
You
that's,
don't believe in right and wrong?
or actually, we'd be more of a descriptive law about right and wrong. It's like,
Okay, but look, that was all I'm saying. Like, look, we have a baby, we have an animal, so somehow those babies had to have come to a knowledge of understanding of semiotic symbols, writing, and then from there, like you said, we discovered. But I guess we can move on to a next question. So
that's
if you have
still,
any question,
it's
I
still
was just
gonna,
curious about that.
I mean, that's just somebody had to invent language first, and then they had to teach other people how to read.
Exactly. Yeah, that's my point, and that's what I was asking. Was it an animal or was it another human being?
Well, I'm pretty sure writing happened well, you know, well beyond our well after any point when you'd say we were fully human.
Okay, that's fine. That's more reasonable in my opinion.
I don't.
Okay.
Yeah, writing is probably a much more recent invention of ours compared to our
You
entire
guys keep
system.
going after reboot. My little computer is kind of
Okay.
freaking out. So you
One
guys
last
continue.
question. Okay. So, what about consciousness and mind? So, and I want you to understand what I'm trying to say with this, right? As far as a medical documentation and information, and I don't know if you've seen my debates before. Me and Scotty have discussed this a lot. Mr. Brian Ballard, you know, about NDEs,
Hmm.
how we have discovered that there's people that survive after death and come back. How do you
Well,
explain that? Uh, how did consciousness and mind, which is not physical, came into existence?
I kind of see it a little different than that because I mean, I'm not fully versed on it, but I kind of feel like it's more like the mind is more of an adjective a than some independent entity. It's more like the mind is what the brain does kind of deal. It's, you know, it doesn't, there's no uh, evidence of it existing without the mind existing without a brain. Um, but I tend to lean towards, I think that's where I think makes the most sense is it's more of a function of the brain than it is an independent thing from the brain.
So, um, have you seen Dr. James Stewart lately?
Uh, I
There
don't.
was a challenge to all the evolution community, and I was wondering how you can answer this. He says this, um, David. He says, on the origin of life, chemist James Tour has successfully called his researchers bluff. There's 10 evolutionists, right? In this is he says to offer to remove all his videos on topic, and three leading experts agree to any fundamental plotters have been solved. So, do you have any idea how the linking of amino acid into chains, aka polypeptides, the linking of nucleotides into RNA molecules, the linking of simple sugars, aka monosaccharides, into chains known as polysaccharides, the origin of biological information? That's what I was asking earlier.
Yeah,
Uh,
but that's like a question about abiogenesis, which is just not on topic here. I mean, I don't really know anything about abiogenesis. I know there's a lot of YouTube videos by James Tour up, and there's also a lot of videos um, claiming to debunk James Tour. I don't have the qualifications to
okay,
really suggest I can to confidently say I can go either way with him.
okay. Well, what can you tell me about DNA?
Dinonucleic acid. That's about it.
Right, but that's about it. Oh,
Well, I
okay.
mean, it's got yeah protein folds. It's the main driver. You know, anytime your kids will have different DNA from you, we can
Yeah.
use it to do genealogy.
Okay. Hey, I'm satisfied. If you have any more questions, if you have any questions for me, Mike, I'm down. I'm ready for my close. It's been an hour. I don't want to bore you guys, because I still have a lot of questions. And my questions, have become because of that book that I say, and I just ordered Daniel Dennett's The Conscious Mind. I think you suggested it for me, Scotty. Daniel Dennett, remember?
Mm-hmm.
I'm about to read that. I just ordered that. It was yeah, Consciousness Explained by Daniel Dennett. I just ordered
I've read that. Yeah.
another book about um, evolutionary biology by the same guy, and another from Oxford University. So I'm very interested in this, man, because he's very interesting. There's a lot of people, going into theistic evolution.
Hmm.
So I'm going hard on this. I mean, as you can see, my English. So
I think Bill Nye had some good books that are really they're good for if you're a layman in the topic to read.
Yeah, he's real
Because
Bill
good.
Nye.
Bill Nye,
Oh,
the
wasn't
science
he?
guy.
Wasn't he? Yeah,
I think
wasn't
he's a
he?
very good communicator. So that's
He
Yeah,
debated
I
Ken.
remember him. Hey, I remember him with Mr. Rogers.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, I
yeah, yeah.
remember those episodes. Yeah.
Another good
Um.
one, Victor, for you, especially because he's an evangelical Christian. He's actually the head of the Human Genome Project. I don't think he is anymore. He's retired, but he was the head president of the Human Genome Project, and he's got a lot of information on evolution. He promoted evolution. He was the head of the Human Genome Project, so obviously,
Who was that?
his name. Oh, why can't
Francis
I just forgot his name? Hold on, I'll pull it
Francis
up real quick.
Collins or
Yep, Francis Collins. There you go.
Oh, really?
Francis Collins.
I ordered a book, but I haven't been able to read it yet. I just got it last week. It's called Mind and Cosmos.
yeah.
Hmm.
I ordered that. Um.
Yeah, Francis
Well, I
Collins.
just order Christopher Hitchens, Sam Harris, The Moral Argument. I got a whole bunch of stuff to read, man. But I work 12 hours at
Nice.
night. It's hard, man.
Well,
You
it's
know.
good to see you interested in studying all this stuff. That's
Yeah,
great, man.
and that's what I'm saying, Mike. I ask you these questions. It's not to pin you or try to point you to God. It's just some of the things I question, right? Like if somebody taught me, how to read and write, and I'm wondering, man, I
Like
wonder at what point in time did we ever learn, or from who we ever learn how to read and write?
I mean,
I
but
was
it's
just
like
curious.
yeah, I mean, look at how even the alphabet evolves along with the language.
Hmm.
If you go with my example using language earlier, because the Latin alphabet roughly stayed kind of the same, and then but or the letters in it stayed roughly the same as it transferred out, but the words and the spelling of them all changed.
Yeah, I see a lot of changes. For
I mean, you can
example,
even look at Old English and New English, and you see huge differences. That just kind of
oh
shows,
yeah, New King,
shows you.
the King James Bible, and
Yeah,
not New
Yeah,
King.
and
Yeah.
cultural evolution is a good
I
analogy
just
because
I just think language is the best
yeah,
analogy to evolution because it's something we have can really see
Okay.
yeah,
like
Okay.
almost in real time. Think about words that are kind of common now that weren't used when you were a kid at all. Like I feel like even it wasn't common when I was a kid to use acronyms as much as it is now.
hmm,
You know, I was watching Stranger Things and they said something about how they loved KFC. I'm like, nobody called it KFC back in the 1980s. They called it
mm-mm,
Kentucky Fried Chicken.
Yeah.
right,
Yeah.
right,
Yeah.
exactly. Well, cool guys, this was really good. Did you guys want to give a closing now, or did you just
Yeah. I'll do a closing. I'm interested in doing a closing.
okay, cool,
Um. Okay. So what I learned from this, right? Okay. My whole point. I understand that Mikey can't go back and give us, a scientific evidence. I can understand that, but I wanted to see if he can give me a reasonable, logical explanation how we got here. All right. Now I understand what he's saying, a biogenesis, but I wanted to get to something. But because I seen these arguments, that's why I asked him how does DNA works, and I was about to ask him how do we get a cell. Now, according to the DNA studies, okay, all this information is all about information, and we have the theistic argument is that if we evolved from such animals, where did the information came from? And I was hoping to get a very good explanation from him, because if I could just, see what he's coming from, I could say, oh, okay, but I didn't get that. So my cross examination question is if anybody wants to know where I was heading with this, because this is the way we view reality, and I don't disagree with him. He says if we find a note written in his desk, he would never assume that that would evolve. That's what I'm trying to get to him. That semiotic information, okay, is just like in the DNA. That's the question that we're asking. I know we can't go back in time, but you know what? how did that information came about? And at this point, with just 20 simple letters, we could see that. Do you guys hear that song? I don't know if.
Go ahead.
Oh, sorry about that. Yeah. So over here we got like 20 letters in perfect order and carry a meaning and a symbol. When we look at the DNA, we're talking about millions and millions of code and we see order. I see a mind behind it. And what do I mean by that? So if you're going to tell me, okay, Victor, like I'm reading right now, you know, we eventually evolved from an ocean of chemicals. All right. But look what this person says here, and I hope he remembers. He says this: what would really be amazing is if you could throw the ingredients in a test tube, leave it, then see the droplets replicating. He says, you could wake me up in the middle of the night for that. In other words, look, we got enzyme, we got DNA, we got all these things that got to come together, right? How did it came about? Second, all right, since we have this information, it seems to me that we have like a computer thing, like Bill Gates said, that the DNA information is just like a computer code. And if you're going to introduce no information, where did that other information came from? That was my question. I'm still curious about that. I didn't get no satisfying answer. So, Mike, all right, Mike, I understood and I kind of knew we were going to play the word game here. Well, that's a biogenesis. This is different. That's why I asked, what is the origin of human life? Well, there is no satisfying answer. So, Michael, I'm still in a loop here. I didn't even bring God into existence yet, but look, I'm still a Christian, and I'm still skeptical whether we evolved from monkeys. Because I mean, if we can even explain where semiotic information came from and information that is understandable, then guess what? It's rational for me to be still keep searching, and it's rational for me to still believe that creative mind and information is passed on from another mind. Thanks, Mike.
All right. So I think I just understood what your question was finally after this whole time, because you kept asking about symbiotic information. I think the problem, the disconnect we're having is you're trying to compare symbiotic information to DNA information. Those are not comparable, really. DNA, and when you understand the process of how evolution works, DNA is basically passed on from one generation to the next, but no generation is a perfect copy of the previous generation. So you get these minor changes. These changes are either good or they're not good, or they're neutral. If they're good or neutral, they can be selected for. They'll eventually stack. You have more changes. And this is how we get to humans. So I think the evidence that the origin of human life is just that we evolved is pretty overwhelming. And that's true whether God exists or not, because if God exists, then you must have used evolution. I don't think that's the case, though. Because I guess what was confusing me is it just seemed like you were asking or trying to explain. You seem to have this idea that if we were evolved, we can't be creative creatures, and that's what I'm not sure that's what you were actually getting at, but that's what it really seemed like you were saying. But now I think it was just more of a combination of you're trying to compare symbiotic information with DNA, and I don't think those two types of information are comparable, at least not like that.
Okay. So, is that your finishing closing, or any more
Yeah,
you want to add?
I'm just winging it, so.
Okay. All right. Well, it's been an hour, a little over an hour. We're gonna see if this after party hops off. I know a lot of people express interest in it, so there's a link right there in the live chat, folks. So if you're out there and you want to join the after party, it kicks off here in a few minutes, about 8:20. So we'll go ahead and do that. I'll jump in. If you guys want to jump in, feel free. Hopefully some other folks will join and we can have open discussions and talk about it. So I'm going to go ahead and end this stream. And and again, click on that link if you want to jump in on the after party.
Oh,
And
that one in there?
yeah, that's right. So yeah, just click on the link, have a join, and we'll meet backstage.
Okay.
All right, guys. So really good discussion, interesting. I enjoyed it, and you guys both did a great job.
All right,
And,
thanks, Scotty.
all right,
So
man.
what do I
Mike
do
is,
after I hang up? I call back again that information there?
yeah, that one right there. Just click on it, and here I'll put it. It's in the
Yeah, can you send it to me on the message?
yeah,
All right, thanks,
definitely.
man.
Yeah,
Mike,
man.
thanks again, man. And I wasn't trying to aggravate you. I was just, seeing where you were coming from, man. It was an honor debating you, man. Thanks, Scotty, again. Hey,
Yep.
let's keep doing this, man.
Let's do it. Nice to meet you, Mike.
Nice to meet you.
All right, brother. Bye bye.